What's up, everyone? Greg and Ryan here. Now, we are absolutely crushed that there are no more chapters to this rich, psychedelic, surreal, once-in-a-lifetime story.
But instead of crying, we're going to spend the next few minutes talking about our favorite moments from the entire series. Let us know your favorites in the comments below, and obviously, there are a ton of spoilers in this video.
Really?
Yes, there are going to be a ton of spoilers, so make sure you've seen all 3 seasons, then come right back here and watch this video. All right, Greg, let's do this chronologically, starting with episode 1 of season 1, the pilot.
Course, the premiere.
A very good pilot,
Yes,
very strong pilot, and it really set the tone for what we'd see for the rest of the series.
Yeah, that montage, Happy Jack, just to start it off, and we've seen it pretty much in, I think, almost every episode. We're gonna get a little clip from that episode. So, I mean, come on, there's no better way to open up this show, and honestly, this what got me hooked.
Yeah, and from start to finish, that episode, so much stuff happens. I remember like rewatching this recently. You know,
there's so many things
you're
you
in
can pick and
Clockworks,
choose. Yeah.
and then you get out of Clockworks by the very end of it in an epic battle. But just to see David's kind of life and what he's been through, you know that this type of storytelling is going to be different than what we've seen in any other show, right? I mean, just the visuals, obviously, the soundtrack, the use of aspect ratio and
practical effects.
Practical effects. Even the dance number in the middle of this episode during his dream sequence was awesome. I mean, it was foreshadowing for what we would find throughout the rest of the series years later.
David?
Now, I have read in numerous interviews with Noah Hawley that he really wanted to lean into the idea of the uncanny, which is, you know, it's strange or mysterious, especially in an unsettling way. So something that you wouldn't expect. And definitely the Shadow King was something that we couldn't expect.
Oh yeah, and speaking of the Shadow King, this is where we got his big, first time ever live action debut of this character, or at least the first form of this character we got on screen, which is the creepy devil with the yellow eyes. We also got the little boy, the crying boy. We also got the dog too this season. In the first episode, I mean, come on, what else do you need? It's so creepy. And of course, we can't forget about the kitchen shot.
Yeah, the kitchen scene was one of those really cool, obviously a bunch of CGI there, but it was a really cool scene to show David's powers, and not only that, like what is going on in his mind, and the how hurt he is and how damaged he is. Also, another crazy scene was the interrogation with Division 3, right? Like seeing how powerful he is there, and then the pool scene that we both enjoyed, and that leads all towards the end of this epic kind of breakout out of Clockworks for David, and he joins the rest of Melanie Bird and company.
Now, I remember that thinking, oh, cool, this is where we're going to get more of an X-Men vibe to this show. And that was the one thing they did not do, which is crazy.
Yeah, but I think that was a really good thing that this show didn't need to lean into those X-Men themes, right? Like it had a little bit, but it really was clear that this was going to be a departure from what we know, anything else in the X-Men universe or the Marvel universe. It was going to be something different, and this pilot really set the tone.
And one last thing on that episode, I will never forget the shot when I watched the episode a few times later, and you finally see it, of the Shadow King, little doll of the demon with the yellow eyes roll. Like, great shot, and it's
very subtle. It's there, but it's there from the beginning.
And that would set you up for the rest of the series, where they would do little things like this all the time, including where you see a shot of Amy talking to David, and in the little corner of the room, in the mirror, you can see Lenny Busker right there. So,
yes. And you know what stands out to me actually is at the very end of this episode, when he is deciding to go with Melanie Bird and the whole team, is you see him turn back, and the Shadow King is kind of in the bushes, just creepy as hell.
Rocks.
Just like he has to like turn his back to the Shadow King and try to escape that. And just a very well done episode to get us started off into this series.
Next up, let's talk about Dr. Lenny Busker.
Yes.
Chapter 6. This is the episode where Lenny captures everyone, brings them into the astral plane, and halfway through the episodes pulls out a dance number, which I will never forget.
And I'm feeling good.
I think this was the moment that you and I just kind of fell for this TV show. I mean, Aubrey Plaza is doing an amazing job as Lenny Busker, obviously, but just to throw out this dance routine in the middle of this episode, just to show her power and her overwhelming influence on everyone in this episode was perfect. It's directed by Hiro Murai, this episode, who's one of the best directors out there. He's done Atlanta, Barry, anything that Childish Gambino pretty much does. It was just such a different visual tone for this show, and it was awesome.
This is one of the first times that I screamed out, and I would do this a lot, what the is happening throughout the entire series.
Yes.
But this was the start of that.
Another one of our favorite moments from this season is in Chapter 7, I believe, when David basically teaches himself and the audience where he came from. And we're talking about that chalkboard-style animation of his father fighting the Shadow King in the astral plane.
I love the way that the British David was trying to talk some sense into our David. It was pretty damn cool. And at the same time, this is your first actual hard evidence that we're going to get something with Charles Xavier.
Right. We had small hints earlier on, but now it's like literally drawn out on a chalkboard for us.
It was just a wheelchair or something.
Exactly. So this is like when we know exactly, okay, Professor X fighting in the astral plane. You know, we've all read this in the comic books, but here was like an actual visual representation and the exposition given out for the audience to kind of learn exactly what's happening, and for David to kind of learn on his own as well. And, you know, this is also a point where we kind of see the different personalities, as you brought up, the British David talking to himself and kind of breaking him out of his mental block and trying to help him kind of free his mind and fight back against the Shadow King.
Did they fight with their fists? No. They fought here, in the astral plane, with their minds.
Next, let's talk about the silent film sequence we got for Bolero, where it is almost like 2 parts.
Yeah.
You get everything in clockworks in black and white and this silent film, and then you have Oliver outside of there as a conductor trying to save everyone. Cool. Again, another what the moment from me, and I loved it.
Yeah, and it shows us that like we're not going to get the expected sequences of action that you would in another comic book movie or TV show. They're going completely silent. They're using different aspect ratios, the lack of sound here, the music, to show a battle. The title cards during the silent film parts, title cards to show this epic clash between all these forces. And even like small homages to They Live with the glasses when you put them on, and the black and white and then in color. There's a lot of fun touches to change up the storytelling that one would expect from a show like this.
And from here on out, we discovered that this show is probably going to take a lot more chances going forward, and I love that. They were going to take some risk, and it paid off.
Also, I'd be remiss if I didn't bring up the finale of season 1, how the Shadow King kind of escapes, right? He moves from person to person. The whole room goes red, and he finally finds himself in Oliver Bird, and there's kind of a little bit of showdown. We get that X behind David, lots of X-Men vibes going on, and it was a pretty cool, fun sequence of the Shadow King ultimately getting away, and then he would regroup in season 2 to attack them.
Where should we look first?
Someplace warm.
And speaking of season 2, let's jump into that. And there's only one thing we should talk about for the entire season, honestly, and that is Amahl Farouk, played by, of course, the great Navid Negahban. Now, this character might be my favorite character in all of Legion as the years go on.
Yeah.
He may be my favorite character of all time when it comes to villains in general. When you talk about like the MCU,
where is your ranking?
Oh, okay. All right, so I made this already. The MCU, like the greatest villains in the MCU, it's like
slash
a holy
TV shows as well.
Slash TV shows. I'm going to add them in here. There's a holy trinity in my mind right now.
Go for it.
It's Amahl Farouk, Killmonger, and Purple Man. I think this is the ultimate. Kingpin. He's close. Kingpin's in. He's getting close. But if I had to drop someone from the Holy Trinity, it's probably Kingpin.
I think if I would add one, I would probably add Vulture from the Spider-Man. I thought it was good. Hey.
Oh, but that doesn't. They're out of the MCU now.
Oh, now they're out of the MCU.
Disney says it's done.
Don't bring up Spider-Man, Ryan.
50-50.
I don't feel so good.
You're all right.
I don't know what's happening. I don't know. I don't want to go. I don't want to go, sir, please.
Speaking of Amahl, Farouk, how about that first time they met on the astral plane?
Why so sad? Why such a sad face? I love that scene and the fact that they had their first battle, the wrestling.
Yeah.
in the astral
tank,
plane.
Yeah, the tank as well. It looked really epic. It was just really well done, and the imagination of how you could fight. You know, we talked about before a silent film fight. Then you got this really, really cool supernatural type feeling, surreal fight in the astral plane where anything's possible.
Omega level mutants, you can do whatever you want. Now we're going to talk about a few dance numbers, but we can't forget about the dance number at the opening of season 2, where it's the three-way battle sequence. I love that.
One of the standout episodes has to be Chapter 14, when we see the different multiverses of this show's universe.
Different Davids.
All the different Davids and what could have happened in the future and what could have happened to him in the past. A very much a standalone episode that it really kind of blew the doors off of what we expected in the show. It came out of nowhere, but it still fit in perfectly with what we knew.
What's funny about that season as a whole, season 2 may be a lot of fans are lukewarm on that season, but it has quite a few episodes that may be like the greatest episodes of the entire series.
Right,
and I think honestly my favorite episode might be Chapter 14. Just the fact that one, it's written entirely by Noah Hawley, and at the same time, this episode had this mouse.
And again, I love the idea of all of these different types of options and universes that can happen, these timelines that can happen, and basically, it's all a consequence of the choices we make, right? David made different choices throughout all of these different multiverses, and we get to see how it plays out in the future. And it was pretty cool to kind of get that standalone aspect in a show that has such a big universe and see just them having a little bit more fun with like what is possible in this world of Legion.
You get your homeless David, you have your office assistant David.
That billionaire David.
Yeah, the Magneto billionaire David. Oh God, it's so good.
Money is a tool, you see, nothing more. Power. Because without power, who would listen?
And speaking of the other versions of David, there's one version left that showed up in the penultimate episode of season 2, which happened to be Legion himself. In all of his comic book glory on screen for the first time, you were gassed up when you saw this.
I definitely was, because it reminded me heavily of what we've seen in the comic books, right? I mean, visually, we had never seen David Haller like this before.
You were so excited.
Yeah, and it was like, it was like Legion, the world killer. This was him right here. And ultimately, we never saw that part again, but I thought it was a really fun nod to the comics in a show that, leaned into the comics a little bit, but really didn't try to stay far away and distance itself from what we know in the comic books.
Yeah. Moving on, let's talk about I guess I'll say it's second favorite character, Sid.
Played remarkably by Rachel Keller.
She was amazing.
Yeah.
I know she wasn't a fan favorite for some people, and that has to do more with the storyline with David and Sid and how the villain and what do we want to say, hero-villain story arc played out. And some people just weren't a fan of that. I absolutely loved it.
Yeah.
Now with that said, Chapter 12, again, another episode from season 2, which is a little bit of a roller coaster season.
Yeah.
That episode stands out as one of the best episodes of the entire series. You get a little bit of a tiny origin with Sid in this one. At the same time, we talk about the title card sequences and everything. That was one of them where you got it at the very end.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful story. It's very complex. And again, it was another time where they took a risk at this show and it really pulled off.
Yeah, and to get that context on what happened to Sid, right? That background of how damaged she is and what happened to her and what these powers have done to her as well. To get that really helped to kind of understand her motivations throughout the rest of this series. So I agree with you. I do like kind of these standalone episodes where we get to hang out with one character specifically and kind of learn more and see what their whole motivation is moving forward.
Okay. I'm ready.
Now, towards the end of the season, there are so many moments that I enjoyed. I mean, seeing the Minotaur in the desert there, the fights in the desert, the giant sinkhole.
The imagery.
The imagery was just insane and lots of fun. But I have to say that final battle between Farouk and David, when they're floating towards each other, and you see the neon astral projections behind them doing battle, and they're singing "Behind Blue Eyes" during this whole showdown. I mean, like, could it get any more perfect of a showdown between these two mutants?
And I'll never forget that weird scene where Lenny's shooting a tuning fork to stop the Shadow King for 5 seconds so they can take, okay, cool, sure, whatever, this show is weird, I love it. And of course, the final scene of season 2 where David becomes the villain. It happens. It finally, you get a little bit of a legion.
Yeah, you think that like David's gonna be the hero of this show. And if you read the books, then you know that that's, it's not so black and white. But then to see David kind of, decide that, you know what, I'm not gonna follow you guys, and you guys don't love me, and I don't need you guys. Like he basically just sheds them, and he's on his own, and he's gonna prove to them that he is not the person they think he is. This is a really cool moment because like it really left us on a cliffhanger of, holy crap, what's gonna happen in season 3?
Can we really trust the Shadow King?
Yeah.
Turns out we could.
Can we?
Sort of.
Sometimes at night I go in there. I stand very still. I pretend I'm a robot too.
Okay, let's jump into season 3 now. Now, if Amahl Farouk is the overall character, we would say, for our main character, I guess, for season 2, season 3 has to be Switch, one of my now favorite characters on screen because she's a made-up character by Noah Hawley and Lauren Tsai. And Lauren Tsai, great job all around. I loved everything. I love the visuals with this character. I love the storyline, the through storyline they had with their father. It actually pays off at the end.
Yep.
This was amazing.
Yeah, and the way that she was introduced to the show in the very beginning of season 3, there's not much dialogue going on there. It's just kind of just showing you her life, and you really start to understand what she's been going through with very little information, being told to you. It's all show, not tell.
Yeah.
And I think they did an awesome job of kind of, showcasing the kind of loneliness that it is to be a mutant and to be a time traveler and to have these powers and to be kind of like just all on your own.
The writers made a genius decision to introduce this character Switch after season 2, where you had this battle between now hero versus villain Switch with David and Farouk, and then what's going on with Sid. So you had fans going, I don't know what to trust anymore, I don't know what to believe in, and then bringing in Switch to just have her as the anchor for everything else going on in this show without having her be somewhat of the main character. And you're like, what about David or Amahl or Sid? No, everyone else is still there. This was a great job balancing these characters all together for this final season.
Sorry for the wait. Was it awful? Not too bad.
And finally, we have a suggestion. This is the last time I'm ever going to talk about Disney Plus ever again. I swear. I swear. I look back to the last episode, and it did feel like we were doing like an advertisement for that damn app.
We're not sponsored by that.
Not at all.
No.
But with that said, should you decide to do an X-Men show, there's an actress out there now who could become, a great Jubilee. Just saying. Just throwing it out there. Lauren Tsai would be great. Do it, cowards.
Speaking of Switch's introduction, the Something for Your Mind dance sequence probably is my favorite one of the entire series.
I would say the same, but I feel like we're just, because it happened so soon that we're just like really amped on
recency bias, and it might be. By Superorganism, if you've seen the music video, here it is right now. I'm going to show it to you. It is incredible, and it is literally perfect for Legion. I mean, for Noah Hawley to find this group and to have them perform in the show as we're kind of getting introduced to David's kind of new hideout, it was just remarkably amazing and like perfect for the show itself.
The perfect band.
Something for your mind, something for your...
Now, speaking of David's mind in season 3, we have to talk about the one thing that, you can never forget once you see it.
Yes.
It's the giant drug pig.
Greg, you and I watched the behind the scenes. They actually made
a practical pig.
A stomach of a pig with all these nipples that they would actually smoke drugs out of.
They built that thing.
Yes, that's amazing. And then the rest of it's obviously computer generated. But as soon as we saw it, we're like, is that a pig? I just love how they talked about making it. And they're like, Noah Hawley asked for a giant pig. And they're like, okay, we'll come up with something, and that's what they came up with. It was like perfect for the show. And this, like, one of the more creative ways, I guess, to get high in anything I've seen.
No liquid out of that thing. You're breathing in the gas from that. So cool, great. I loved it.
Now, Switch wasn't the only character that you and I enjoyed in season 3. I think they did a great job with David Haller's parents, right?
Yes.
Gabrielle Haller and Professor X, Charles Xavier. 2 amazing performances by Harry Lloyd and Stephanie Corneliuson.
Yes.
Great job from
Mr.
both
Robot.
of them.
I loved her from Mr. Robot.
Yes,
And I was like, I wanted more of her, but I understand they only had so much time.
Totally. But she did a really good job playing David's mom. And Harry Lloyd, who did an incredible job with Charles Xavier, showing us a performance, an Xavier that's different than anything we've seen out of the other iterations that we've seen before.
But
Something
it's
completely
worthy
separate.
to be on the top.
Oh, 100%.
All
Totally.
the other 2 of those.
Totally.
James
A
McAvoy
much
and
young,
Patrick Stewart.
exactly, but a much younger Charles Xavier and a much more naive, inexperienced, and then to see that kind of battle go down of him, the initial battle with him and the Shadow King, which we haven't seen before. It was a lot of fun, and it was super effective for comic book fans.
But I am here now, and I want to make it right. So please, my darling boy, let me be your father.
The visual effects team had their work cut out for them for this season when it came to time travel, and including their little favorite guys, the Blue Meanies, aka the Time Demons, or Switch's hallway sequence.
In between time.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, and like you said, the Time Demons. Incredible job with practical effects and some computer graphics, obviously, because to make them how they kind of, it was like almost
leaving
stop
a little
motion.
bit of a, a little
but
bit of a swish on them.
Leaving the LED lights in their eyes in order to see that when you're filming it, as well as, just showing the stop motion effects of like these things, these creatures coming for you. And
Nightmare fuel.
Literally they have the control, they collapse time around you so they can make everything age. They can like freeze you in your spot, and it was very, very it felt like horror vibes in this show towards the end of the season.
Finally, let's close this out with Legion, the character.
Perfect.
Legion, not the show itself, but we got Legion, the character, at least 3 times this season. Was it 3? No, or is it 3?
Drei Gläser.
The first time Legion shows up, he wipes Sid's memory.
Overwhelms her.
He
You
overwhelms
see
her.
all the Davids around her, and this is very, very horrific.
And then the second time, he scares the hell out of his father when his father tries to wake him up, and all the Davids come out the doors.
Yeah, I think his father kind of sees exactly how powerful he is in that moment.
Daddy, is that you?
David? Nope. Sorry. David isn't here right now. He had to go someplace quiet. We're in charge now.
And then the third time where he's fighting the younger Amahl Farouk.
Yeah, just a perfect way to wrap up this entire series. I think I speak for both of us when we say like we enjoyed, one of our favorite moments is how the whole thing ended and how it kind of bookended exactly how it started, and to have that last remaining shot of David as a baby again, all over again, and everything's reset, and all the memories and the people that happened before are kind of all disappear and they go into nothing, and then now it's kind of like completely new timeline where anything, it's not the end anymore, it's also the beginning. And just a perfect way to wrap up a 3-season arc that probably could have gone a little bit longer had they wanted to make it.
Around season 2, I got that like Twin Peaks season 2 vibe where I knew, oh, this show's not gonna last much longer. It's one of those, we all love it, but it's so niche that I feel like it's not gonna catch on. And but again, they said it was only 3 seasons from the beginning, and
The fun thing is that literally this show could have gone on a few more seasons, or it could stop. It could come back in 5 years.
I'm happy.
And we can get like another whole season, or we could get a movie, or we could get something else. So like the stories could continue based on how this whole kind of went down and how it all developed at the end of season 3. So those are basically the majority of our favorite moments. Now it's hard to say literally everything. We only have so much time to make this video for you guys, but let us know what you guys think are your favorite moments in the comments below.
What are we forgetting here, guys? Let us know. Anything on Autonomy that you really loved? What about Amy? When I think of Amy, I'm just gonna think of everything green.
What
Just
about
love.
Manzukis and the Big Bad Wolf?
Oh,
So